Hello, this is Gene. It's been a long time since I talked to you guys. Just want to say something really quick before I go in my video. This little hat right here is for the national champions, women's softball for college. And there's a thing going on right now that there was a play in one of the games for one of the players that play for Florida State, Jessica Warren, one of the best softball players I've ever seen in my life, probably the best third baseman I've ever seen. And I played third baseman my entire life. I played in softball. She's just unbelievable. She makes a great play that basically wins the first game of the series for the championship. And it's on ESPN right now, and it's in the finals right now as the play of the year. And I hope that anybody sees this, just go to ESPN and look for that. And you can look at the play and you can decide whether it should be the best player of the year, a best play of the year. I think it is. And regardless, I would like to see her get that son of notoriety. It helps that she's an athlete, amateur athlete, and well, now she's a professional now. She actually plays softball about 20 minutes from me. But anyway, if you could do that for me, I would like that. So let me tell you what I'm going to talk about today. It's been a couple days, about 3 weeks since I've been talking to you guys. A lot of things have changed. The last video I did, I think, was about my picks for the World Cup. I got England right during the semifinals. I was right about Germany. I thought that something would happen to them. I thought they would get out of the group stages. I didn't think they would get, but they didn't. But I thought that there was something wrong with them, that they weren't as good as they were 4 years ago, and I was proved there. I lost a little bit later on. I thought Brazil would have beat Belgium when they played. That didn't happen. But anyway, I think I got two of the semifinals correct. I think France I had against Brazil in the semifinals on one side, and I had England against Spain on the other side. But I had Brazil winning the whole thing, so obviously I'm not going to win. But it's nice that I was right about England and England to get to the final. Why I bring that up is because there's something more that's going on here, and it was kind of hinted at during during the breaks of the World Cup. You start seeing weird tweets from the Blue Czech Brigade talking about how France would not be France without multiculturalism. Belgium would not be in the semifinals without multiculturalism. Basically, what they're saying is the migrants that have come in, these people that weren't born in France or Belgium, that's the only reason why they got to the semifinals, and also that somewhat talks about England as well, because obviously England is not really representative of the native culture. Let's say in a country that's 87% white, half the team is black or a mixed type of race type of thing. So, but then there were other same people talking about that the only four teams left are from white countries. Now, I don't know why they were saying that exactly, because the teams are not really like that at all, except for Croatia. Croatia is probably the only team that's left that's filled with native players. But what this is just another time that they're just pushing this multiculturalism. And the thing about the World Cup, it is basically the epitome of globalism. It's what it is. So I'm just sitting there just listening to this, and I want to be happy because my father's side of the game of my family, my heritage is from Belgium. Hector Lachine came across the shores, I think right after over the Civil War, and he was from Hanau in Belgium, and he's my great grandfather, I guess. So on Facebook I said, this one's for Hector when Belgium beat Brazil. But at the same time, as much as I want to support Belgium, when I look at that team, I don't see Belgian players. There's a couple of players out there that clearly are, but most of them are not. And this is nothing against guys like Romelu Lukaku, who plays for Manchester United. I mean, and the fact that he sits there and sings the national anthem. But he said before that at sometimes he feels that he is part of Belgium, let's say, and other times people, when they don't do well, they bring up the fact he's not from Belgium. His descent is from Congos. And it's one of those things that you want to support him and want him to do well, but people don't want to say what you want to say. That the truth is he's not Belgium. Now, he's not Belgian. Now, what does that really mean? Belgium is a fairly new country. But anyway, the thing with the World Cup and when the national team selects their players, they obviously don't care about what race you are. They're trying to find the best players. And I tweeted out there that I think that there's something fundamentally wrong what's going on right now. And I can't really necessarily blame the federations for selecting these players, but there's something else that's going on. And I said it before, when England last hit the semifinals in 1990, it was a predominantly white team. Now, they had guys that had, if I remember correctly, they had guys that might have Irish in their background, and maybe their father was from Ireland and the mother was from England or something like that. We had that a lot in England as well. Like Ryan Giggs could have played for England, and I think he played as a schoolboy for England, but he decided that he wanted to play for Wales because I think he had his problem with his father or something like that. So this is what he did. He never got to play in the World Cup. So you have this issue as well. But there's another issue too, that why is it now that there are guys that are native are not good enough to play for the national team? What has gone on when they're actually selected as a youth person to play and are followed and get the training that they need to get to the next level? And I talked about this before in my channel. I see it all the time here, especially when it comes to basketball. Now, basketball is still culturally probably a black man's game, but they didn't invent it. Okay, it was invented by a school teacher, a white guy, and for a lot of times it was basically segregated. I mean, you had the blacks played and the whites, and eventually they came back together, and now culturally became a black game, let's say. But when you see what happens in this country, and it's similar, I'm sure, as in soccer overseas or football overseas, that you're noticed at a young age and you are streamlined in these programs to make you better. And then, of course, you get the parents in there saying, my God, my kid might be like a basketball player. My God, he can go to the NBA, or at worst, he might get a college scholarship and he can make money that way. And a lot of people just kind of like ping on to them and they suck these guys down. And it's the same thing in soccer as well. But there's something else that's going on here because, like I said, in 1990, the team was almost white. So there were a couple of black guys who played on the team. It was somewhat demographic representatively. It was very similar. And same thing happened in France. And even though they're great players that I love Evra and all these guys that played for France, but it's changed so much. You can go on there and you can see where it was in 1998 when they won the World Cup, France I'm talking about, and then look at them now. It's just, it's shocking to me. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm putting it out there on Twitter, and I'm like, did white people forget how to play football? Why is this happening? Is there something that said we have to promote kids at this young age to make sure that they're going to be selected later on? Now, I try to look at it from a social, economic type of areas. Maybe these young kids that come from that type of background who might be black or from other ethnic groups, that there's more motivation for them to do better. A lot of places you're dealing with single mothers, and this is a way a woman allows their kid to go out and has another father in their life, a mentor in their life, and those kids might have more motivation to save his mother, get her out of the position that she's in right now. You see that all the time, and you want to be in favor of that. You want somebody to get out of that area, but there's something strange going on here, and I don't have the facts in front of me. I don't have a research on this. It's just something I've noticed, and it clearly falls into this whole thing of globalism and multiculturalism. They basically want this to happen. And I was thinking about this, and I've talked about this before. I talked this before the World Cup even started. But then I just was on YouTube last night, and I saw the FIFA 18 story thing, and I was just going through it. And it's the same thing. There's a black kid on there who has a white father and a black mother and a great grandfather who was a great player for Manchester United at some point. And so you have this mixed son, and then you look at Manchester United. So you say, well, that's just crazy. That's just doing it for whatever. But it's still, there's a lot of realism going on right now, because in Manchester United, there's 3 or 4 guys that have white mothers and black fathers that play for Manchester United now. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just saying that this is what I'm seeing, and we're seeing that more and more in the media that we see. Every day I turn on the TV here, and there's several commercials that shows a mixed race company or a family, and I'm like, that's still not the norm. It's not even close to being the norm. I mean, it's 99% or 95% of all marriages are, you usually stay within your race. I'm not saying, again, that's not good or bad or whatever, but it's part of this whole thing. And I don't. You go down that rabbit hole, and you're saying, I think this is all related. There's no way in my mind, because we've talked about the difference between IQ when we look at the group dynamic. Yes, I can point to a black guy down the street who has a high IQ, and guys like me that have a low IQ, and say, see, IQ doesn't really mean anything because that guy is smart, so that white guy is stupid, or Asian guy is not really good at math, or a black guy is not really good at basketball, or some crazy shit like that. Excuse me. However, sorry about that, guys. When we have these conversations about race and IQ, a lot of things comes out. People will be called racist for bringing this shit up. But nobody gives a shit when we see this total demographic change when it comes to sports around the world. You know, you just allow that going in basketball to happen. Now it's happening in soccer. Yeah, I see some of it in ice hockey. It's not as much, obviously, but it's happening. And I'm thinking, is there somebody trying to force this on to make this the norm? I mean, there is no way. I mean, I coached for a long time when I was in my 30s. You know, I was watching. Of course, this is 20 years ago. This is similar at the time when it all kind of changed. Kids would come out to play for basketball or soccer or whatever, and there was always 1 or 2 really good players, and they weren't always black, they weren't always white, but there was no. The shift is so dramatic. And the thing is, what I see, even if I just say, okay, that's what's going on, and maybe as a group level, they're just a little bit higher when it comes to athleticism, although still, nobody can point to me any African team that's got to the semifinals of a World Cup. If we're talking about a game that has a ball, it shouldn't be that hard. If you're so much better athletically, you should at least get to a position where you should be winning these things, or be in the semifinals. Obviously, things happen in a game. It's a team sport. Sometimes the best athletes don't win, but it hasn't happened. People talked about this 30 years ago, that this was going to happen, that an African team was going to win the World Cup. It still hasn't happened. So then you have to make that decision. Is that because they're not as smart as a quote-unquote white country is, or whatever? I'm not going down that road, but the thing I'm trying to say is there's something going on here, and it's another way to just push this at us and saying we're not really worthy to either represent the country in a sport, that we have to allow them to come into this country because we're not good at it. It's almost like in the United States is that white people can't work on farms because we won't do it. I'm like, come on now, this is stupid. We did it before all this happened. I don't know. I'm rambling right now. But the thing is, I see what I see, and I want to be very supportive of my ancestors at Belgium today when they play France. But France is worse than Belgium is at this point. I mean, it's like watching an African team, and I don't know what to think about that. And I don't know why I feel that, whether it's good or bad, or I feel guilty about thinking that way. It's not what it should be. And again, if the demographics were similar for half and half or something like that, then that's one thing. But even in England and France, as bad as it's happened there, it's still a hugely majority white country. There's no reason why that team cannot be somewhat typical of the native. I mean, it should be similar. It shouldn't be so out of whack when it comes to soccer. This is not basketball. That's, like I said, it's more of a cultural game. Everybody plays soccer around the world. There's no way in my mind that there is not white Frenchmen that can't do this job. I mean, they won the World Cup 20 years ago. What happened in the last 20 years? The guys that just won the World Cup, they didn't have kids and they couldn't stock with the new team. I mean, it makes no sense to me that France looks like this or Belgium looks like this. Belgium being a smaller country, obviously, you might say, well, there might be better teams around the world or better players that we can bring in they have some claim to be Belgium. Okay. England, it shouldn't be an issue, but it is what it is. And it's not just there. When I look at Denmark and I see a couple black players on that team, or Sweden has a couple black players, I don't know what that means. I don't know if this is what this is going to be, then fine. But I think there's something more here. And again, I can't really blame the guys that are making the selection at the top of the level. When these guys are saying, I got to find the best players to play for this country, and this is what I have. There's something going on at the lowest level when we're selecting who's going to go on, because there are only one or two guys out of 50 that'll show up on a field that are so much better than everybody else. And so something's happening at that level that's saying, we're going to say, you're going to be over here, and it takes that person a lot harder to get there. And I talked about this about like guys like Harry Kane, who basically started, I think, at non-league, and he had to keep fighting and fighting to get to where he is today, and now he's one of the best strikers in the world. And you'll see that in England and other of the leagues that are below the Premiership or the La Liga or the Bundesliga. The lower leagues have a lot more white players, and it makes something's going on here. Unless you're so much better, then you get to play at that next level. And if you're not at the top level when it comes to like Manchester United or Chelsea or something like that, if you're like playing for Stoke or Wigan or something like that, then they end up having more and more guys that might be more native looking. And I know it sounds so racist to say this, but it kind of like not defames what's going to happen. If England wins the World Cup, I'm going to be happy for them. They haven't won it since 1966. So, yes, I'm going to be happy. And a lot of guys that play for that team plays for Manchester United. And I like Lingard, and I like Jesus, Gene. Young. These are great guys, good people. And they're British, okay? They're not Africans that came up. These are guys that they're, you know, I know in Lingard's case, his mom is white. She's British, so clearly he's British. You know, I don't put a caveat on that as well. Same with Smalling. I don't know if he's playing for the team, but he's used to play for the England. His mother is white. There's a couple British white girl. So I don't know what this is, okay? But it's something I noticed, and I want to talk about it. And, you know, we can talk about it in the comments below. I just think it should be something that we should look at, because I think it's all part of the plan, whether it's forced or it's not intentional, but it's all part of it. It's like, let's help this guy a little bit better, even though this other white kid, that's the other native British kid, who probably has come from the same neighborhood as this other kid, but somehow we got to push this one up a little bit more on and saying we don't need this here. And all that time, the media is basically saying to this one kid, especially if you're a white, young male, that it's your fault for everything. And then when you've been shamed this entire time, it's going to be hard for you to say, oh, now I'm going to fight to get to the next level, or I want to defend my country. And they become very liberalist, almost socialists, and they go to college and become feminists and something like that, and they lose all of that thing that makes them male, makes them masculine to play sports, and to, like, guys like Maguire that plays for England, you know, just that stuff, English, Irish, guy that's going to go through the walls to win the world championship for you. And what we're seeing now is this totally different. It's just not. It's not English. It's not French. It's not Belgium. It's not Danish. It's not Swedish. It's not German. It's something's here, and it's just part of everything. But that's what I had to talk about. Today is the first semifinal. It's France versus Belgium. Personally, I want Belgium to win because of my ancestry and I do like some of the players on there. And I thought their play against Brazil was very epic. And I thought that for the first time in his great career so far, the player that I don't necessarily like, but who plays for Chelsea, is Eden Hazard. I thought